Welcome to Story Stream channel. Our story about Sara and the Forest Guardian. In a small village nestled between green mountains lived a simple girl named Sara. She lived with her grandmother in a tiny cottage surrounded by wildflowers and mulberry trees. Despite her modest life, Sara loved adventures and often imagined herself as the heroine of thrilling fantasy tales. One evening, while Sara was collecting firewood from the nearby forest, she heard a strange sound like the chirping of birds but with a sharper tone. She followed the sound until she reached a dense bush, and there she saw something that made her doubt her eyes. A tiny fairy no bigger than the palm of a hand, wearing a glowing multicolored dress that shimmered like a rainbow, hovering in the air while holding a small glowing wand.
Who are you?
Sara asked with eagerness and curiosity. The fairy smiled and replied in a soft voice.
I am Ruby, the guardian fairy of nature. I have watched over this forest for a long time and protected it from harm.
Sara felt amazed and excited. She kept staring at the tiny fairy who sparkled as if made of stars. She said,
Is this real, or am I dreaming?
Ruby laughed and said,
Everything here is real, Sara, and I have chosen you for a special mission.
A mission? Me?
Sara asked, her eyes wide with astonishment. Ruby nodded and said,
Yes, I have noticed how much you love this forest and how you care for it. That is why I decided to grant you a magical power to protect nature from a looming danger.
Then the fairy pointed her wand toward the sky, and suddenly the trees began to sway as if greeting Sara. She felt a warm energy flowing through her body, as if she had become one with the earth itself. Ruby said,
Now you have the power to control the elements: water, air, fire, and earth. But you must use them wisely, for there is an evil person planning to destroy this beautiful forest.
The next day, while Sara explored the forest using her new powers, she sensed an unusual disturbance in the air. She saw a strange man in a black coat carrying a large metal case. He wandered among the trees, placing odd objects into the ground. She quietly approached him and asked,
What are you doing here?
The man glared at her and said,
This is none of your business, little girl. Go home before something bad happens to you.
But Sara wasn't afraid. She used her power to make the earth shift under his feet, causing him to stumble and fall. Then she ran away shouting.
I won't let you destroy this forest.
Sara returned to the fairy Ruby and told her what she had seen. Ruby said with concern,
That's Dr. Ramsey, an evil scientist who wants to extract precious minerals from the earth using destructive machines. If he succeeds, the entire forest will collapse.
Sara decided to stand up to Dr. Ramsey, but she knew she couldn't do it alone. She went to the village and gathered the children who always played with her in the forest. She told them about his evil plan and taught them how they could help her. The next day, Dr. Carl put his plan into action. The huge machines he brought roared to life, filling the air with dust and noise. The trees shook violently as if the forest itself was crying in pain. Sara stood before the gathered children and said firmly,
It's time to show this man that nature is not for sale or destruction.
Then she raised her hands to the sky and summoned her powers. First, she used the power of water to turn the nearby river into a raging flood that drenched the machines and shut them down. Then she used the power of air to lift the evil man off the ground, causing him to drop his metal case and flee in fear of nature's wrath. But Dr. Ramsay didn't give up easily. He returned with a group of men armed with more advanced tools. They began cutting trees and setting fires in parts of the forest. Sara felt worried, but she remembered Ruby's words.
Use your powers wisely.
She thought quickly and decided to use the power of fire cleverly. She created small sparks on the ground around the men, causing small fires to break out in specific areas. When the men saw the flames approaching, they believed the whole forest was burning and began to retreat in fear for their lives. Finally, Sara used the power of earth to replant the trees that had been cut down. She placed her hand on the ground and felt a warm energy spreading through the soil. Moments later, new buds began to grow rapidly, turning into small green trees. After the battle ended, the fairy Ruby appeared once again, smiling with pride. She said to Sara,
You were a true heroine, Sara. You used your powers with wisdom and courage, and you succeeded in protecting this beautiful forest.
Sara smiled and said,
I couldn't have done it without your help, Ruby. And thanks to my friends as well.
Ruby nodded her head and said,
But remember one important thing, Sara. True strength is not in the elements you control, but in your brave heart and belief in good. You will always be the protector of this forest, even if you no longer need your supernatural powers.
Then Ruby disappeared in a burst of light, leaving Sara standing amidst her friends in the forest, which had become lusher and more beautiful than ever before. Since that day, Sara became a symbol of bravery and selflessness in the village. She taught everyone the importance of protecting nature and how teamwork could make a big difference. And while sitting under the shade of a large tree one evening, she looked at the starry sky and smiled, knowing that she would always be the guardian of this magical land. The end. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.